Have you ever wondered how a family can go from being among the richest people in the world to having almost none of that fortune left just a few generations later? The Vanderbilt family is one of the most fascinating examples in American history. At their peak, the Vanderbilts possessed a fortune so large that it seemed impossible to spend. They built palaces instead of houses, traveled on private yachts, hosted extravagant parties, and lived lives that most people could only imagine. Their wealth shaped the skyline of New York, influenced American society, and helped define an entire era known as the Gilded Age. Yet within less than a century, much of that fortune had disappeared. Some heirs spent enormous sums on mansions and luxury. Others divided the fortune among countless descendants. Economic changes, poor financial planning, and lavish lifestyles gradually eroded one of the greatest fortunes ever created. By the 1970s, members of the Vanderbilt family reportedly gathered for a reunion and realized something astonishing. Not a single one of them was a millionaire. How did this happen? How did a family that once symbolized unlimited wealth lose so much of what they had inherited? This is the remarkable story of the rise, glory, and decline of the Vanderbilt dynasty. The story begins long before the famous mansions and lavish parties. In 1650, a Dutch immigrant named John Aertsen arrived in what was then New Netherland, a Dutch colony in North America. Like many immigrants, he arrived seeking opportunity and a better life. To identify himself, he adopted a surname based on his hometown of De Bilt in the Netherlands. Over time, the family name evolved into Vanderbilt. For generations, the family lived relatively ordinary lives. Nothing suggested that their descendants would one day become one of the wealthiest families in history. Everything changed with the birth of Cornelius Vanderbilt in 1794. Born on Staten Island, Cornelius grew up in a modest household. His parents were not wealthy. As a young boy, he worked alongside his father, transporting goods and passengers by boat. Unlike many wealthy businessmen of his era, Cornelius started with very little. He learned early that success would require hard work, discipline, and relentless determination. At the age of 16, he borrowed money from his mother to purchase a small sailing vessel. The investment proved successful. Soon he was earning money by transporting passengers across New York Harbor. As trade and transportation expanded in the United States, Cornelius expanded with it. He entered the steamboat business and became known for aggressive competition. He frequently lowered prices to drive competitors out of business. Many rivals disliked his tactics, but they worked. Over time, he built a transportation empire. Later, recognizing the growing importance of railroads, he shifted much of his attention to rail transportation. The decision transformed his fortune. By the time he reached old age, Cornelius Vanderbilt had become one of the richest men in America. His fortune exceeded $100 million, an almost unimaginable amount in the 19th century. When he died in 1877, the nation was astonished by the scale of his wealth. Yet the controversy surrounding his estate would begin almost immediately. Cornelius decided to leave the majority of his fortune to his eldest son, William Henry Vanderbilt. Many other family members felt betrayed. There were lawsuits, disputes, and accusations. Some relatives claimed that Cornelius had been influenced unfairly in his final years. Despite the conflict, William inherited control of most of the family fortune. Unlike many heirs born into wealth, William proved himself to be an exceptional businessman. Within just 8 years, he nearly doubled the family's wealth. His success ensured that the Vanderbilt fortune would continue to grow. However, William viewed wealth differently than his father. He reportedly believed that great wealth often created anxiety rather than happiness. Ironically, his concerns would later prove prophetic. When William died in 1885, the fortune passed to a new generation. This generation inherited enormous wealth, but lacked the same drive that had built it. Many Vanderbilt heirs preferred spending money to making it. Some became famous for their extravagant lifestyles. Others sought social status through lavish homes and expensive hobbies. One of the most influential figures of this era was Alva Vanderbilt. Married to William Kissam Vanderbilt, Alva possessed extraordinary ambition. At the time, many members of New York's old elite looked down upon the Vanderbilts. Despite their wealth, they were considered new money. The marriage united American wealth with British aristocratic status. To many observers, it appeared to be a fairy tale wedding. In reality, both bride and groom reportedly entered the marriage under significant pressure. The union benefited their families financially and socially, but it was not necessarily a love match. While some Vanderbilts pursued titles and social prestige, others pursued something even grander. George Washington Vanderbilt the Duke envisioned creating one of the most extraordinary private homes in history. He purchased vast amounts of land in North Carolina and began constructing what became the Biltmore Estate. The project was massive. The mansion contained hundreds of rooms and required years of planning and construction. Even today, Biltmore remains the largest privately owned house in the United States. Despite their immense success, the Vanderbilt fortune gradually began to decline. Lavish spending, costly estates, and inheritance divisions reduced the wealth that Cornelius Vanderbilt had worked so hard to build. As transportation and industry changed, the railroad empire that created the family's fortune became less dominant. Economic crises, including the Great Depression, further weakened their financial position. Later generations found success through their own talents rather than inherited wealth. Gloria Vanderbilt became a successful designer, artist, and author, while her son, Anderson Cooper, built a respected career in journalism. Today, the Vanderbilt name remains legendary. Their story is remembered as a remarkable tale of ambition, luxury, success, and decline, showing how even the greatest fortunes can eventually fade away.